Canary Black is a recently released on Amazon Prime spy movie starring Kate Beckinsale, Rupert Friend, and Ray Stevenson. Is it any good? Should you watch it? How much of it was influenced by other spy movies? Well, let's take flight with Canary Black. Hi, this is Dan.
And Tom.
From our podcast, Cracking the Code of Spy Movies, and our website, spymovienavigator.com, the premier go-to resources for spy movie fans. Join us as we decode the 2024 movie, Canary Black. All right, Canary Black is an action thriller spy film directed by Pierre Morel and written by Matthew Kennedy. Here are some key details. This one has a lot of spy movie tropes for us to discuss. We'd like to thank Eric Seabury, one of our great Facebook group members, for bringing this movie to our attention as one worth decoding. Tom and I don't always agree on this one, but let's get moving.
Yeah, I think we do disagree on a few things here. But let's start with something where we're in agreement and say that this movie has a lot of scenes influenced by other spy movies. And I mean a lot.
Yeah.
In fact, I almost turned this off fairly early on in watching it, right? Because I was getting a Charlie's Angels vibe, and I'm talking about the 2019 Charlie's Angels that we did a preview on. We didn't like that movie in part because it looked like it didn't have an original idea and just borrowed from a bunch of other movies, and it was just like, put me to sleep. So in this case, though, this movie does seem to be heavily influenced by other spy movies, but I'm glad I stuck it out because Canary Black, it's said both ways in the movie, grew on me. And they took some nice twists with the influenced material. So, now the opening scene is just a total ripoff, right, of another movie, and we'll talk about that in a second. But then a lot of the other influencers of this movie, they took an idea that was fairly common and twisted it, which was kind of nice.
Yeah, given the number of scenes that were influenced by other movies, we're going to hold off on anything that might be considered a spoiler till the end of this episode. All right, that way, for our listeners, if you haven't seen Canary Black yet, we won't spoil it for you. And if you have seen it, you can get a better handle on the number of movies that influence this one, and any watch or rewatch will enhance your viewing experience.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think we should give a fair warning when we get to that section. So when we talk about the spoilers, let's do it at the end. Listen to stuff up until then, and if you haven't seen it, maybe you don't want to listen to the spoilers until after you watch the movie.
Yeah, they're not going to be big spoilers, really. I mean,
no.
I don't know. All right.
Canary Black explores the themes of loyalty, betrayal, and the lengths one will go to save a loved one. And it also dives into the world of espionage and the moral dilemmas faced by those in the intelligence community. And this is common in most spy movies.
This movie has received mixed reviews. While some praise Kate Beckinsale's performance and the action sequences, others criticize the predictable plot and technical inaccuracies. I've seen some stuff that criticized Kate Beckinsale as well and her performance.
Oh, they're wrong.
Yeah. Now, given what we just said about spoilers, we don't think telling you about the opening shot is a spoiler. There's no plot twist ruined here. So Kate Beckinsale's character, Avery Graves, is on top of a tall building in Tokyo, and this movie starts with a scene right out of any Mission Impossible movie. She is really? Upside down, traversing a building on a wire. Yeah, I mean, this is Ethan Hunt's signature move, and here we have Avery Graves doing it right in the beginning.
Yeah, you talk about being influenced. I mean, as you said, this is Hunt's signature move. He does it in all of his Mission Impossible movies, and I think it actually takes some brass to start a spy movie out with that move. That said, I thought they did a good job with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's done well, but she almost gets caught because she lands in front of a door that someone walks out of in a few seconds after she lands. And I wondered, where did the wire go? Did it get automatically rewound? I don't know. I didn't see it going anywhere.
Details. Gone. It was dark, Dan. You just couldn't see it.
I didn't see it. All right. So Graves needs to get a USB stick from a guy. And of course, it doesn't go easily for her.
Wait, Dan, what's on that stick?
Yeah, well, we're going to get to that in a minute. A knock list, codes for nuclear weapons. Oh, well.
We said this movie was heavily influenced by other spy movies.
We'll see later, maybe. All right.
So we have some influences here. Yeah. So she ends up in this room and she gets a guy to open up a safe. And what it actually made me laugh because over half of the real estate in the safe was a watch box for self-winding watches. You know, those cases that keep the self-winding watch is wound. I mean, yes,
Very important to this guy.
there was a lot of money and other things of importance there, but really the size of this watch box really cracked me up because it took over half that safe. And now, granted, the USB stick was really small, so that was easy. But
Yeah.
I also thought that involved in all of this is a fight scene. We're not going to get into it in a lot of detail here, but I thought that fight actually worked pretty well.
Yeah. Again, she's in a lot of fight scenes and it's amazing, but I think it may have worked. But I also thought this is the start of a very violent movie. There's no question. I think we see about 10 kills in the first 3 minutes of this movie and pretty serious big kills. Just maybe there was a little too much violence here. I don't know. It's relatively nonstop.
Yes,
But
I disagree with you, and we've had a disagreement about violence in the past, and
yeah, this is one
yeah,
big one.
there was a lot of it, but for me, I don't think it was over the top for what was trying to be done in the movie. I
Okay.
mean, for instance, there's a violent scene that ends up with Avery holding a thug's tooth in her hand. Was this scene
Yeah.
violent? Yes. Was it out of line? No. I mean, and I don't know if we've said this yet, though, Dan. I mean, this is an R-rated movie here in the US. That means
Yeah,
people
that's
under
true.
17 years of age need to be accompanied by a parent or an adult guardian. So
Yeah.
given the rating, I don't think the violence is out of line. Many spy movies like we see like Bond, Bourne, or Mission Impossible are PG-13 rated, so they're not going to have the amount of violence you're going to have in an R-rated movie. And if
Well,
you
yeah,
look at
look, the tooth scene really didn't bother me that much, actually. It was a different kind of violence. But I mean, it's a violent movie so far in the first 3 minutes.
all right, but
I don't think you could disagree with that.
no, it was violent, but I mean that tooth scene, right? I mean, right, that's not in the first 3 minutes, but I mean, how are you going to make that less violent? It kind of had to be done for the plot. And
Yeah.
so, I think the violence was needed given the circumstances, if
Yeah.
violence is ever needed, right? But, you know,
I don't mind the violence per se. It is necessary to the unfolding of this story, but the story demands a lot of violence, and that's the twist. They wrote it that way for the violence. So, okay, given that they wrote it that way, yeah, it's got to happen. But then again, in some of the Bond movies, like You Only Live Twice, and everyone's getting killed in the volcano attack. Like 196 people get whacked there. And Brosnan and Goldeneye, I think he had 47 kills in that one. So, I mean, we've seen it before. So, it's not like we're not used to it. This was gory, though. This was more bloody, showing the blood and stuff.
well, it's rated
More
R,
than
Dan. It's not
Bond.
PG-13.
No, right. All right. Maybe a little less would have been okay, but in telling this, it's a potent story. It's a good story.
Yeah,
All right.
I would agree with you. All right, now this is a violent movie, but if you think about what they've been doing, especially with female leads in these spy movies, is they've been doing some fairly heavy violence. If you look at
Yeah.
Salt, Hannah, Atomic Blonde,
Yeah.
La Femme Nikita, right? There's been a lot of, and I don't know if it's they feel like they have to make the female leads more
Yeah,
badass or
yeah, they're
what it
going over the
is.
top to make them
Yeah.
look tough,
And
which is okay.
yeah, and we've been critical when at least for me, I haven't thought it worked in Charlie's Angels
Yeah,
2019 and the 355 because the stories weren't any good. But I thought this was done here, and it follows the trend of some of these other movies that have been successful with female leads in very violent movies.
all right, let's go. Let's move on. That's after this scene's over. We go to Zagreb, Croatia. Avery comes home to her husband, David Brooks, played by Rupert Friend. He works in logistics and finance for Doctors Without Frontiers. This scene does a few things that I think are necessary for us to know. First of all, it establishes that Avery is married. Second, that her husband appears to be a very nice guy.
Oh, he sure
Right?
seems to
Right.
be here. He seems to be a
Yeah.
really nice guy.
And third, they have some money in the family. They are in a nice house. David gives her a nice coat for their anniversary, and then he pours a nice bottle of wine out of a decanter to celebrate their anniversary. So,
Okay, wait. I got to jump in on the wine here, Dan. Right. When you
yeah,
say
we
nice
like
bottle of
wine.
wine, right? This was a 2010 Chateau Angelus Grand Cru, like a $400 bottle of wine. It's a real nice wine. And he was also correct in decanting it. So far, I'm good with this guy.
There you go. All right. We should get some wine for this episode. That would have been nice, a bottle of that.
It would
All
have
right.
been good.
Then we see Avery go to work. The company name is Avenger Risk Management. I think this is a great cover name, maybe even better than Universal Exports, or at least more accurate, because the word adventure comes from the Middle English word adventure, which was borrowed from Anglo-French. It can be traced back to the vulgar Latin word aventura, which means what will happen. Well, I like that. So it's a telling name for this cover company. I like this. What will happen? That's
Yeah.
cool.
Well, and there's risk management in there, so that's telling you,
Yeah.
okay, there's some risk. Now,
Everything's a
I
risk.
actually, you say the Anglo-French. I thought it was from the French word aventure, meaning
Yeah.
adventure. I mean,
Well, there's a lot of roots to it. But
it can
anyway,
also
there you
mean
go.
it can also mean affair or chance.
Yeah. Hey,
So I just think that this French connection and your whole Anglo-French, it's a great way to look
I
at
like the French Connection.
how this yeah, good movie.
Yeah.
How this was used, because I think it's actually, I like it better than the Universal Exports because it
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
has a
Yeah.
little
It's
hidden
cool.
meaning built into it.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right.
Now, I also found it interesting that when we first see Avery's boss, Jarvis Headland, played by the late great Ray Stevenson, Avery gives him a watch. And it was a much nicer present than what she gave to her husband for their anniversary the night before. I mean, by a
She,
lot. Although
she gave him a pair of underwear or something.
she gave her husband a pair of underwear with a cute saying on it, right?
Yeah.
Now, this watch was a Reservoir Sonamaster Chronomatic Classic with an Osier bracelet, which lists for $6,150 US dollars.
Of course you would know that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I looked it up, right? Now she plays it off by saying, "Don't worry, it's a knockoff." And we
Okay.
don't get a close enough glimpse of the watch to tell. But what does this say about her character? What do you think this says about her character? If it's she's giving this guy a watch like this and she says it's a knockoff.
I'm not concerned. Either she's really sucking up to him and maybe having an affair with her boss. I don't think so. Or she's fine with knockoffs and is willing to give them as gifts. Either maybe it's not a good look for her or whatever. But then again, I think it doesn't bother me because I think that, hey, if it was a knockoff, that would really fit in with her character that we've seen so far. So I have no problem with it. I think it's a knockoff. There you go.
Okay. We do see him wearing the watch later in the movie, by the way.
Yeah.
But anyways, all right. So she's done this. She gives him the watch, and then they go into this room to have a briefing. And this room is in the middle of a big room, and it's got glass walls. And so, for those of you who've seen Silence of the Lambs or Spectre, this room is going to have a familiar feel to it. It's a glass wall room, but it isn't to house bad guys. It's a meeting room.
Yeah. Wasn't used here as an interrogation room like in the other movies, but it's a pretty cool room.
Yeah,
It's,
and I agree. And why I'm
yeah.
pointing out that this room's glass is made to be opaque, meaning keeping people from the outside of the room seeing in, but being able to see in until they tell it to go opaque, however they do that, was because it immediately reminded me of Sloan's ice cream parlor in Florida. Okay,
Okay.
what does Sloan's ice cream parlor have anything to do with this movie? All right, and this is
Yeah.
a bit of a stretch, but at Sloan's they have bathrooms with this type of glass. When you go in, it's clear, right? You can see right through it, no problem. And to get it to go transparent, you have to lock the door. And it's really a riot to watch people go in the first time trying to figure out, wait, am I gonna go to the bathroom with this clear glass here?
Oh, that's
So
cool.
so it made it funny for me the way I saw that, just because it reminded me of Sloan's.
Yeah. Hey,
All right.
hey, hey. And there's some really expensive houses really that have this feature as well. And it also reminded me of, remember in one of the airports, maybe it was in Copenhagen or something, they had a glass room just like this in the middle of one of the terminals, and that was the smoking room. And people would go there and smoke, and you'd see the same thing. The whole cloud would be there. You couldn't see through the thing. Everybody'd be smoking, and they're like, oh my God. It reminded me of that too in a funny
So
way.
the
All right.
smoke was obscuring it. That's good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Also, in this scene, pay attention to everyone's computer screen. There are some foreshadowings in them. Hint, hint. So take a look. All right. So the walls may be transparent and then opaque, like we just said. And that's what I thought of this plot. I found it a bit confusing on the first watch, but and a little opaque. But once again, like in some other movies we have covered, like Arabesque, I mean, you got to pay attention to virtually every detail. So, who is who and who is on whose side sometimes is a head scratcher. And it moves pretty fast with a lot of killing and a lot of violence. Yeah, I mean, I like the concept of why she's on this mission. That's very understandable. Is it unique to cinema? No, but it works here. But there's a lot thrown at you fast. And so dedicate your time to watching this. On my second viewing, it was much easier to follow, actually. So
I
there you
agree
go.
with you on that. In fact, for
Okay.
me, many spy movies help with the second viewing.
There you go. All right. All right. Let's move on to dive into this scene a little bit more. Avery needs to find a file with a list in it called Canary Black. So this is the MacGuffin in this movie. It's a list, we're told. A list in a file. Oh, wow. Now
You love that, Dan.
that's original. How many times do we need to see a list that can destroy a large group of people, or usually agents or government officials in a spy movie? I mean, please, yikes. Enough, right?
Yeah, but they do actually two twists on this. This isn't just a standard knock list. There's a little bit different in the definition of it, but it's still essentially a knock list, right? But I thought that the other twist they do with it was effective and fairly unique. I mean, I don't want to really say more because I don't want to give away that twist.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it more in the spoiler section at the end of this episode. But for right now, just yes, there's this list. It's on a USB disk. They've got to get it, and it can be bad for people.
I'll give it to you that the twist was a welcome turn of events. But
You know,
okay.
Dan, let me stop you there. But before we go on, let's go ahead and do some shout outs. We forgot to do that at the beginning.
We're going to give some shout outs to some of our Facebook group members who have recently given us feedback on our podcast episodes. We love hearing from you guys. So give us more. We want it. All right. Here's a big shout out to Morgan Lisney for his comments on our Sean Connery podcast, Mario Tati for our Five Fingers episode, Pietro Rossi for Bond as a Psychopath, and for all of our pre-title sequences, which he loved, Jim Phelps for why the next actor who plays James Bond doesn't matter, and Michael Fox, who praised our show in general and recommends it to his friends. So thanks so much for your feedback. And hey, spread the word. We appreciate it. Keep it coming.
Yeah, we really do. We really do appreciate all this feedback. It's really helpful for us.
All right.
Okay, so let's move on. So we've talked that there's this crisis for Avery that we're not going to describe yet. But if you look on Prime Video, their quick summary of the movie does tell you what we're not telling you here. Right?
Yes.
So we're trying to be a little vague with what's
So go figure.
And they give away, it's like marketing. They always give away these plot twists. But this does change her motivations and ends up setting up a double pursuit similar to what we've seen in numerous spy movies like The 39 Steps, Mission Impossible, and many more. Yeah. So a double pursuit has two different groups going for you, trying to get you. One could be your friends and the other the enemy, but both groups of people are after you for some reason. So you have no refuge. You've got no safety zone. You're on your own. You've got no help. We love the double pursuit.
Yeah, it's cool. So Avery finds this guy, Henrik, who can get her information. He tells her, now she's pretty well connected, you have to say. She knows what to do in virtually every situation. So she's pretty cool.
Yeah, and her boss, Headland, actually says in the movie that she's his best agent. So
yes, right.
Kind of like Bond, right? It's my best agent is out here on this mission.
Yeah. And well, hey, sometimes the agents go rogue. Have we ever seen that? I don't know. Yeah, maybe. But anyway, she finds this guy, Henrik, who can get her some information. He seems to be a pretty handy guy to know. He tells her
he's a scary guy to know.
Yeah, he tells her that by coming here, you're burning a bridge, and I hope it's worth it. Well, hey, every time Bond went rogue, it was a long-term risk too. So, hey, okay. Have we seen this before? Is it risky? Yeah, okay, it's risky.
People burn bridges all the time in these movies.
Yeah. All right. There are instructions that she needs to follow, and one set leads her to a building, and on the door outside is a door knocker with a lion's head. This reminded me immediately of Scrooge going to his home on Christmas Eve and seeing the ghost of Marley in his lion's head door knocker. So I'm already anticipating this might not go well.
I totally missed that.
Yeah, there you go. See? I look for things like this.
I know you're loving Dickens, so that's perfect for you to come in with.
All right. Here, Avery ends up in a situation similar to what happened to Merlin in Kingsman: The Golden Circle. Avery figures out a way to hit her way out of this situation. This scene made me groan a little.
But this scene is not as bad as that pun you just made. I mean, Okay, if you haven't seen the movie yet, you'll get it when you do. When you hear Dan
Yeah.
talking about figuring out a way to hit her way out of the situation. Oh
And
man.
just think of Bouncing Betty. Okay, there you go. Then she goes to her safe house. Now she notices a ripped piece of paper in the corner on the floor, maybe like a scrap of newspaper, almost looked like, and it has
Yeah,
the word fearless on it. Now, that's good because if you think anything about Avery, you know she is fearless and she has a high tolerance for pain. That comes out in the movie. So
absolutely.
now, so she sees this little scrap of paper in the corner on the floor. Now, it's easy to miss this, so you got to watch for it. It's important. She went in and knew there was someone in there, probably, who's going to attack her. Was this piece of paper something she had put in the doorway and that it had been moved? I think so. It kind of felt to me very similar to what Sean Connery did as Bond in Doctor No with the strand of hair on the door. So she's good. And what did she do when she went in there? She immediately showed us she knew something was up
Yeah,
with where she went.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
you'll
Well,
see that.
yeah, and the cool thing here is it's here we see the aftermath of doing the spy work, assuming
Yeah,
she had that paper somehow planted so that it would be on the
right.
floor if the door was opened.
Yep.
In Doctor No, we first see him doing it. We don't see her lay out the work. We just see the fruits of her efforts.
Yeah. All right. So here Avery has to deal with the crisis that has been presented to her. She is in a double pursuit, and the story goes on from there. So let's move on to the actors and their characters. As we said, Avery Graves is played by Kate Beckinsale. I think she does a very good job in this movie. She's believable as this badass spy. In general, her performance is called out as one of the highlights of this movie, and we agree. I think she's good.
Yeah, and I think this is a really good example of using a female spy that has to be a badass. We talked about some
Yeah.
of the other movies earlier, but I think she does a really good job here.
Now, she's like 51 years old in this movie. Wow. Number one, it's great to see a woman in a lead role as a spy. Number two, it's always great to see Kate Beckinsale. All right.
Yeah, no, she as you said, she is 51. Now we had
Yeah.
just reviewed the movie The Union and commented on Halle Berry's performance in an action movie,
Yeah.
and Berry's 58. And we're seeing more men and women actors getting action roles into their 50s, but I think their action tends to slow down a bit as they age.
Oh,
They
yeah.
set this movie up that it's going to be the first of more multiple movies.
Could be.
Is Beckinsale going to be as good at this stuff at age 58? It's going to be
Hmm.
interesting to see how she ages through because again, both men and women, we see this where there is a decline in what they can do in the action sequences. So I'm just curious as we go forward how badass she'll continue to be as she ages, and that's nothing against her, right? It's
Hey,
just
hey, hey, Tom
we
Cruise
see
does the
it.
same thing.
Hey, I'm in my 60s. I can't do it. I couldn't do any of this stuff when in my 30s, but
Uh, all right. But anyway, she's great in this movie. I want to add that Laura Vertler is Beckinsale's stunt double. And I think both Beckinsale and her stunt double do a really nice job throughout the movie, especially in the opening scene. My understanding is that Beckinsale performed a lot of her stunts, but Vertler does a great job as her double. Beckinsale responded when a reporter said that she didn't do much of her own stuff in this movie, and she showed the bruises that she sustained from filming the movie. So it's like, okay, yeah, what about these? What about that? What about that? All right. Okay. In real life, she had bruises. In the movie, wow. I was amazed at how little damage she took to her body in all the fights, the brutal fights that she was in. I was thinking, man, you didn't get cut much. You didn't get hurt much. But stunt
well,
doubles,
she there's some cuts. I mean, there's some.
yeah, there's a few little bruise on your face. Great. Oh man. The other guys are man.
Yeah.
Anyway, stunt doubles though play a very important role. And as you said before, Tom, it's great to give some of these stunt performers their due credit.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Dan. Now, you say there's very little damage, and I'm going to give you an example here. Avery's involved in a nasty car accident,
Yeah, yeah,
and then like 45 seconds later, she's running. And it kind of makes me laugh when they do that because imagine you getting into a car accident, a nasty
yeah,
one especially, and your car gets flipped upside
yeah,
down, there's
yeah,
glass,
yeah.
and you just happen to get out of the car and then pretty quickly are running.
Yeah, Ethan Hunt does the same thing all the time too. It's like, really? I mean, I can see, okay, you got adrenaline, you got this, you got that. Okay, it's the same thing with a couple of other actors in this movie too, and
Yeah.
other players in this movie. They did the same thing. They're
Yeah.
running after these brutal
Yeah.
accidents. Of course, there's a car chase. That's what we're talking about here. It's a spy movie. You got to have car chases. There's everything in this movie. Car chases.
There's a tram. That's the only train I remember. But
Yeah.
but I actually think them running so quickly after something like this diminishes the impact of that accident. Because
Yeah.
that was actually a pretty cool scene, the way that the chase around that and what happened in that scene. I thought that was very well done. And then boom, she's off running. And it's like,
Yeah, the
oh,
chase was good.
no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But we had to have it.
Yeah. All right. So we have Avery, played by Beckinsale. Then we get Avery's husband, who's David Brooks, and he's played by Rupert Friend. And I'll be honest, with his accent, there were times I had to rewatch a scene with captioning on to understand what he said.
I
You know,
agree. I didn't know which accent he had. It seemed like it shifted to me a couple of times. It's like, what accent is this?
well, I don't know how much to say here, Dan, because maybe that's part of his character. I'll
Yeah,
just put it that
maybe.
way.
I thought maybe it was, but
Yeah.
then I'm thinking, hey, be consistent.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't think he was.
Yeah.
But
Now he's not in a lot of this movie, right? But I think what he does, what Friend does
yeah, he's
playing Brooks,
he,
he does a really good job because this character does have some twists in behavior.
yeah,
And so it's nice to see Rupert be able to pull that off.
I agree. He did great on that. Now, the next major character is Jarvis Headland. He's played by Ray Stevenson. He's Avery's boss. Now, this is the type of role Stevenson was born to play.
Yeah.
Tough, sneaky, and flexible. He also brought a bit of humanity, I think, to this movie as a boss stuck in the middle. He was fantastic here, I think, just perfect.
Yeah, I totally agree. I really liked his performance here.
Sadly, Ray Stevenson died at the age of 58, about a year after making this movie. So that was sad.
Yeah, that was very sad.
Another important character is Agent Maxfield, played by Jazz Hutchins. He's the agency guy who is vocal, very vocal, and believes that Avery has gone to the bad side. This kind of doubt planting is good for the story and the viewer. Hutchins did a good job here. Very
Yeah,
good
and
job.
he's actually one of the keys to the double pursuit.
Yep.
And so he does do a really good thing here. Now, my favorite character in this thing probably is Conrad Bresnov, played by Goran
Yeah.
Kostic. And
Yeah.
it might be because he's the villain. And you know I love a good villain. And I think
He's a good villain.
this guy's a good villain. I mean,
Yeah.
he just doesn't give a damn about anyone else.
No.
I mean, he shoots his compatriots, he appears to play nice in political situations, and he's just ruthless. Plus, unlike many James Bond villains, he doesn't have any physical deformities. I mean, he's just a regular guy, a ruthless
Yeah.
villain. And I think Kostic does a really good job playing this character.
Yeah. He looks tough. I mean, he doesn't have deformity tonight, but he looks tough. And you could see through his actions and his looks that he is downright evil. He is brutal. And I believe there's a lot of ruthless villains like this in the world on all levels, really. Evil, just evil.
Yeah.
Scary evil.
Yeah.
Another key role is Nathan Evans. He's played by Ben Miles. This is good. This guy is the head of the DCIA, and he's kind of a smarmy jerk. I love the
Yeah,
scene.
I would say so.
Yeah, I love the scene when Avery confronts him and she puts him in his place. And then at the end of the movie, someone else may put him in his place. Ben Miles plays Evans well because when you, the viewer, hate the character for what you see being portrayed, well, hell, the actor did a good job.
Well, especially since he's supposed to be on the good side.
Yeah, right. Again, it's one of the confusion things that you're thinking, what the hell is going on? Anyway, he
Yeah,
did a good job.
so those are the key actors in this movie. Now, the ending of this movie, they pretty overtly tell you they're setting up for another mission. And I would like
Yeah,
to see another one, but they named this after the mission. So as they're trying to start this franchise, if you will,
yeah.
it might get confusing. I mean, if there's another, if they come out with another one, how do you know it's a continuation of the first one? I mean, what would you call it? I mean, with Bond Mission Impossible Born, it was always, they would market it as it's James Bond or it's Mission Impossible or Bourne's in the title. Now they could
This is not a problem. What's the problem? I mean, yeah,
Just
Bond has titles based on something in the movie, right? They weren't called Bond something. So they
no,
could
that's
give
true.
it a new story and just refer to Avery Graves in the marketing materials. And at the end, we hear about an agency called MC6. Hey, that would be where it goes, right? Avery Graves will return in.
I guess you have a point there. Maybe that would work. They're setting this up, and I'm like, how do you know it's going to be the next one for her?
The sets, I think, were pretty good. Nothing really other than the glass room. Yeah, it's good stuff. It all fit in. The sets, they looked good. The safe house looked good. All of those kinds of things were well done. When it needed to look gritty, it looked gritty and everything else.
Yeah, but there wasn't anything really outstanding, right?
Yeah, nothing like really grabbed you and said, man, that's like the freaking volcano. Oh my God. Oh, yeah, spectacular. Goldfinger's Lair. Most of this movie was filmed actually in Zagreb, Croatia, but the ending scene was filmed at the Triple Bridge in Ljubljana, Slovenia. Yeah,
Yeah,
go figure.
it was nice because you can tell it's like most of it's in the same place, and actually
Yeah,
the bridge is twice in the movie
yeah,
in Slovenia. So I'm not going to try to say the town's name, but it
yeah,
was in Slovenia.
yeah.
But
All right.
they did a good job representing the area they were in.
All right, now we're going to get to the spoiler section. To me, these aren't big spoilers, but hey, if you want to tune out now, you can tune out. But we're going to talk about some of the movies and shows that most likely influence Canary Black. There will be spoilers, like we said, somewhat in this discussion. So if you haven't seen the movie, if you want to tune out, you can tune out now. And thanks for listening up to this point. But I don't think it's going to kill it for you. We'll start the spoiler section in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, the first spoiler is that there's a sleeper cell in this movie. If you've seen the series The Americans, you know what this is all about. In real life, the Russians had people living as normal immigrants for years in America, living normal lives while spying. When needed, they've been called on to do some task. One of these cells was discovered and it was broken up. That said, there are likely many sleeper cells from many countries around today.
One of the things when we talk about these sleeper cells is in the Americans, the neighbors didn't know that there were spies, right? That
Yeah,
they were sleepers, but they knew they were each part of this cell,
yeah,
right? The kids didn't, but the leads did.
yeah,
In this movie, it's a little closer to Mr. and Mrs. Smith because she doesn't know he's part of a sleeper cell. It comes to fruition during a fight that, wait, this guy isn't who we think he is.
yeah. Right. And that was a good reveal.
I like the way they revealed the whole sleeper cell thing
Yeah,
with him. All right, now another movie we mentioned earlier, Salt, starring Angelina Jolie, was
yeah,
also a spy movie about a Russian sleeper cell. It, like Canary Black, has lots of action and twists. Salt tries to prove her innocence all the time. She has to stop bad guys. Sounds very similar to what we see in this movie,
yeah, yeah,
except in this case, Avery wasn't thought of as being in a sleeper cell.
yeah. Next, there's a scene where Avery has to get into a building. Geez, a spy getting into a building. Okay, gotta
Yeah,
get in.
different ways to do it. She drops down from above on one of them.
Yeah. A friend uses a large drone to pick her up and put her in the building.
That was cool.
If this didn't get the inspiration from the Bell rocket belt in Thunderball, I don't know. I have no idea where it came from then, but I'm thinking, yeah,
Might have been influenced by Thunderball with a twist.
yeah, might have been influenced. But here it's maybe a little bit more modernized. You got a large drone that can carry a person. Okay, there you go.
I think that was actually good because they modernized it.
Yeah, again, brought up to the roof or whatever. You don't really see how she gets into the building, but we'll assume that
Well,
she has ways.
that's being picky, Dan. Come on. It was cool she was being carried by this
It
drone.
was cool. All right.
Yeah. Now, this tech person who's doing this, her friend, she had colored hair. She vaped instead of smoking, right? And she had a
Yeah.
nose ring. So I worry about this because they're trying to show things as current in time. Because this
Yeah.
is when you do the stereotypical tech geek, this is one of the things one of the approaches they show them.
I mean, it was nice, but like we talked about in our episode on the movie Arabesque, that can date a film a few years into the future, really.
When you do something that like
Yeah.
an Arabesque, the guy was talking in that, 60s hippie
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
All
Right. But it was kind of unrealistic with her part. I mean, the drone thing was cool, but then she starts looking at some code and like instantly knows that it's a virus and what it can do. I mean, to me, that
right.
was so unrealistic. It was like instant, boom. Oh, this is this. It's like
Yeah.
they didn't have it in the comment section in the code. This virus is
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. All right.
Right.
Yeah. That was a little
Yeah. Yeah.
iffy.
And then later in the movie, Avery breaks into a secure computer center and needs to copy a file from a server. So
Oh
now
my
we're
gosh.
back at the beginning. We had a direct ripoff, if you will, of Mission Impossible. I'll just put it more nicely. It was influenced by Mission Impossible. And now we're back to a Mission Impossible, but we don't have her coming in from the wire to get this file.
Yeah. Yeah. She's not
Right.
hanging on a wire here,
She
but
does need to copy a file from a server,
yeah.
and she gets her file just in time, but then needs to get out of there.
Yeah. This just in time thing was used a couple of times here, and I really did not like the second one because it was okay. They did it once. You're going to do it again to us? And they did. All right. There's another thing that seems to come out of Die Hard with a vengeance when they have to get to a payphone by a certain time.
Oh
Unlike in
yeah.
Die Hard, though, she didn't have to answer a riddle to figure out where to go next. But but yeah, we've seen that before too.
Yep.
Then there's a scene that sounded like it was right out of Austin Powers. Or really, you look at Thunderball, or You Only Live Twice too. A group of government officials were blackmailed to pay a villain or bad things would happen. Pay up or bad things are going to happen. In this case, the villain wanted more than $1 million.
Yes, I actually like the way they did the number on that. And I thought that was clever.
Yeah,
What the blackmail number was. So
yeah,
yeah, I mentioned the fact that there's this virus that the female assistant was able to just instantly see in the code
yeah.
because Canary Black is the code name for the virus.
Mm.
And the DCIA, that government intelligence agency, created it. And it was so top secret that the president didn't know about it. Yeah, we've seen that before.
Yeah. Well,
And it
yeah.
was, and then it was created as a quote, preemptive first strike weapon to counter the increasing threat of cyber warfare. End of quote.
Hmm.
No time to
We
die,
haven't seen this
anyone?
before, huh, Tom?
It sounds amazingly like Heracles in No Time to Die, or even a twist on what Blofeld was trying to do with his angels in Her Majesty's Secret Service. I just thought this was, I like the fact that they did the twist that it was no longer just a knock list or a list of what
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
blackmail stuff, that
Yeah.
this thing was going to actually do bad things. I like
Right.
that twist, but give me a different twist.
Yeah. Give us something new. And lastly, there's a little bit of the Ipcris file at the very end. Hmm. Yeah. You'll see it when you watch. All right. All right. We've decoded this movie as much as we're going to decode it for you. Is it worth a watch? Yeah. I liked it. I liked it better the second time. I would say, yeah, watch this movie.
And I would
But
agree.
listen to this first. All right. That's a wrap of our decoding of the new Amazon Prime movie, Canary Black. This has been Dan
And Tom.
of SpyMovieNavigator.com and our podcast show, Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. Subscribe to our show and our YouTube channel as well. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it.